Welcome back to another episode of the Shout at the Devils podcast. I'm Daniel Amoia. I run Devils Report on Instagram as well as write for the Hockey Writers. I'm here alongside Justin Brady, who runs Devils Fanatics on Instagram. And it's past July 1st now. The Devils are a fairly different team than they were just a few days ago. Tom Fitzgerald said a couple months ago that what the Devils had last season wasn't good enough and they weren't going to come back with the same group. And that is clearly the case. They shipped off Eric Halla. They made a few depth free agent signings. Um, they're not bringing back guys like Justin Dowling, Curtis Lazar, Nate Bastian. That's pretty big news. Guys like Bastian, who the Devils couldn't seem to get rid of, kept trying to latch on and hope they could become contenders. And I'm not saying any woes of the Devils are strictly Nate Bastian's fault. There's a lot that goes into it, but it's pretty telling that Tom Fitzgerald is like, we got to shake some things up here. So we're gonna just discuss all that in this episode. Excited to have you all. Justin, what were your thoughts about just everything?
Well, first off, this about like what you were saying about Lazar, Bastion, Dowling, and Daniel Sprong. Like, I'm happy they got rid of those guys. Like, I'm wishing them nothing but the best. Especially Bastion. He's been with the organization for almost a decade now. Lazar really grew into a fan favorite. And it's going to be tough to see those guys go, but it's like you have to make the hard decisions if you want to win in this league. And those guys just weren't bringing much to the table in that bottom six role there for any of them. And it was about time they overstayed their welcome. And it's time to bring in some new guys into that bottom six and improve this hockey team. And yeah, I like that they made a decision. I like that they weren't like, all right, let's be content with these guys. Let's move on with them. Hopefully it works out. Like, no, you just gotta, if it doesn't work out, move on from them. And I like that. And I like the moves that they made. We're gonna get into it, but I think this team made the right moves so far in free agency. It wasn't anything crazy. And I feel like they spent their money very well so far. They didn't overpay for anyone. They actually stole like basically like highway robbery with a few of these contracts that they signed for a few of these guys, whether it was re-signing or free agents. So let's get into it.
Before anything, if you're a Devils fan, you owe Jake Allen the biggest hug you've ever given anyone in your life. I mean, we had insiders predicting that Jake Allen would be getting over 5 million average annual value. What he signed for 1.8, I believe. That is just the Devils weren't able to make the depth adds that they've had if Jake Allen doesn't do that. And it's almost refreshing in a sense just to take a step back and see an athlete who isn't prioritizing money. They're prioritizing their family and their happiness and not having to move all over the place and prioritizing possibly contending. That's something that doesn't happen often in any market, let alone in a smaller market like New Jersey. So Devils fans really owe a lot to Jake Allen. I feel like the fan base already liked him, but I feel like it's going to be taken to a different level now that he did so. The term was a little long, 5 years, I believe, but that's a contract that if he feels he needs to retire early or if the Devils just need to dump it, I mean, that's pennies you're worrying about, and the cap's going to go up so much in future seasons. So by the fifth year, that 1.8 million will probably be more like 1.2 million anyway. Like it's just not a big deal at all. The Devils being able to run back the Markstrom Allen tandem for less money than most teams' number one goalies alone cost. So that's a huge thing for the Devils. And because that they were able to prioritize some of those depth moves, that depth scoring. Tom Fitzgerald said a couple months ago, "What is depth scoring?" I wonder that every day, and he can't say he 100% has it figured out. We won't know until we see everyone on the ice. But Evgeny Dodonov, Connor Brown, Arseny Gritsuk, three guys who I could say confidently, even if it doesn't go well, will produce more than a lot of the guys in the Devils' bottom six last season. So it's just all good signs there. Justin, what did you see?
I'm happy they brought back Jake Allen. Don't change what worked last season. The Allen Markstrom duo was one of the best in the league, and you could rely on both guys. When one guy was not playing well, the other guy would step up to the plate. And I like that they brought him back. And the deal was really good. Team friendly, as you said. 1.8 million. Like, we were expecting like somewhere around $5 million a year. That's what all the reporters were saying, as you noted, Daniel. And it made sense because he was the top goalie on the market in a very weak free agency class that is right now. And to get him at that rate is a great deal for the Devils. And as you said, like they could move on from this contract in year 3, 4, or 5 if they really feel like they have to, because he's what, 35 years old now. So it's definitely like he's getting up there in age, but he's gonna retire a Devil most likely, which is good. And he's a reliable guy that you could have as a 1B type of goalie. Allen had 4 shutouts last season, had was ranked top 10 in goals saved above average, and he played near like maybe like 30 games all last season. So for him to be all the way up there, it says a lot about him. And I think it's a guy that you could just trust going forward. The only thing that like I'm like, oh, that stinks is Nico Dawes. I feel bad for that guy because he's proven that he could play at the NHL level for like the last 3 to 4 years now. He's been like bounced up between the NHL and AHL, and I feel like he's proven that he is NHL caliber, but I guess not yet. And maybe this move just gives him some more time to develop, which isn't the worst thing. He's also waiver eligible, so that's always another option there. But the Devils' goalie depth room is like very deep right now. They have a lot of guys that show promise, like Jacob Malik, right? He's projected to be in the AHL next season. You have uh from Boston University, I'm blanking. Yeah,
Mikhail Yegorov.
Mikhail Yegorov. Yeah, I blanked there. Mikhail Yegorov, who led Boston University to the finals and barely lost that game. So he showed, and also the one thing about exciting, like he's like so high tempo, he's like so into it. You could tell like he's a great guy to be around. So excited for him to work his way up to the NHL. So the Devils have a bright future in goal, and to have Markstrom and Allen, it's a good steady duo to have at the moment. And then look, as we know, the signings that they made, Connor Brown, last year was terrific in the playoffs for the Edmonton Oilers, played a big factor, had a lot of clutch moments, finished with 30 points, which is basically more than any Devil had in the bottom six. That includes Eric Holla, Tomas Tatar, you name it, all those guys. So Connor Brown's going to make an immediate impact in that bottom six. And then you get Evgeny Dadonov for $1 million a year. That's a steal. And obviously there's some bonuses that he's going to be earning in that contract. But to get him at that rate, he's 36 years old, but was a 20 goal scorer last year, that's great to have. So I could really see them like putting him like anywhere in the lineup. I could see him being in the first line all the way down to the fourth line. So you have some versatility with him. Like you could really put him wherever you want. And I feel like it would work for the most part. So good signing. And he's proven in the past that he could be a game changer for teams. Yes, he's much older now, but back in like 2018, 2019, when he was with the Panthers, he was an 80-point player with them. So he definitely will make an impact on this team. It might not be the same as it was back in 2018, 2019, but it's going to be much better than what they were getting before. So I like those two signings. And then to bring back Cody Glass, he made an immediate impact after being traded with the Devils, scoring a bunch of goals. Then he slowed down a little bit, but the thing I like about Cody Glass is he's a really good defensive player, and it's not easy adjusting to being traded to a new team. But now you'll have a whole offseason to get more familiar with the team, the players, and I think out of the gate this upcoming regular season, he'll feel much more comfortable in his role with the New Jersey Devils. So they made a bunch of the right moves, and I'm really looking forward to see if they do anything else. Obviously, the big question is the looming Luke Hughes contract extension that really is gonna change everything, but we'll get into that coming up here.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on Dawes. I do feel bad for him because he's been trying to crack into the NHL for 4 years, and he probably thought there was at least a decent shot it would happen this upcoming season. And here's the reality: with Dawes being waivers eligible, the Devils are gonna either have they're gonna have to trade him or put him on waivers because I mean, unless a goalie gets hurt, there's really no other option. And I would imagine that there are plenty of NHL teams who would be jumping on the opportunity to claim Nico Dawes. With that being said, I can't fault Tom Fitzgerald for putting his team in that situation because he wanted to be 100% sure he would have that reliable veteran. And Nico Dawes has showed promise, but can you be 100% certain that he is going to be the answer as an NHL backup? he only played 4 games last season. He was tremendous in those 4 games, but he also struggled in Utica, which Utica had their own problems. Not saying that was entirely his fault, but Allen is a much more sure bet here. And for that kind of contract, 1.8 million, I think that's kind of a no-brainer. So obviously, I'm sure it wasn't an easy decision for Fitzgerald, or it wasn't easy given the AAV, but if Allen was wanted more money, maybe he would have stuck with Dawes, but just that lower contract gave him the ability. I like you mentioned the versatility as well. I think just like the Donov, Connor Brown is someone who you could move up and down the lineup. He could very well be a fourth liner on opening night, but guess what? A few weeks ago, he played on the first line with Connor McDavid in the Stanley Cup Finals. That's the type of guy who you're getting, someone who maybe isn't an elite scorer, but can chip in from time to time and isn't a complete liability. Both of them, Dodonov and Brown, great penalty killers, great defensively, and that's Sheldon Keefe type of hockey, keeping the puck out of the net. So if you have those top guys healthy, like Meyer, Hughes, Bratt, Heischer, I think that's what it comes down to again, health. Fitzgerald is putting the pieces in place, and we could get into if they should add another top six winger. But bottom line is, even as currently constructed, if this team is healthy, I think they're a playoff team, no question. Now we could get into how far they'll go, whatever, but they're set up to be one of the more successful teams in the NHL because they have a fairly complete lineup. I mean, especially in the expansion era where it seems like every few years there's a new NHL team. You look at most teams' rosters, I mean, the Florida Panthers, one with Tomas Nosek and Jesper Boquist and AJ Greer. And yes, I know Devils fans are frustrated because they were former Devils, but none of those players are earth-shattering hockey players. A lot of them were in and out of the lineup. Um, you don't have these complete teams like you did maybe 10, 15 years ago. So every team is going to look like they have holes because that's just a matter of more NHL teams. The talent gets further spread out. So just the Devils bring out in that depth scoring is so crucial. I had a tweet the other night. I forget the number. I could definitely find it in 5 seconds as I look for it. But it was Connor Brown and Evgeny Dodonov combined for a certain number of even strength goals after here. They had 17 combined even strength goals after January 1st. There were 6 lineup regulars from the Devils combined that scored 10. So you average that out, that's not even 2 goals per player. The Donov and Brown each scored about 8 or 9. So that's, I mean, you're quite literally quadrupling the production from the bottom 6. And that's not even as much to the talent of the Donovan Brown that the Devils were just not getting any depth scoring whatsoever last season. And it was basically on the top guys every single night or they got shut out. So,
Yeah.
just making those kind of moves, and then again, we haven't talked about him enough. Arseny Gritsuk, this is a guy who performed better than Yegor Sharangovich in the KHL the year before coming over. Sharangovich came over and was about 0.6 points per game. If you're just getting that, and I think there's a possibility Gritsuk could produce more, but if you're just getting around half a point per game, a 40 to 50 point season from Gritsuk, I mean, that completely changes the dynamic of the entire offense. And they're all adding speed as well. Gritsu can absolutely fly. So can Dodonov. So can Brown. Both two of the faster guys in the NHL. So they're getting back to that identity while not sacrificing defense either. They're getting great penalty killers. They have their goaltending situation figured out. Their power play, I think, with Luke Hughes will be tremendous. So they're in a pretty good spot right now. And it's just a matter of those smaller things. The biggest one that we're going to get into. We don't know if the Devils are going to do anything else because Tom Fitzgerald is waiting to see if he will resign Luke Hughes. Well, not if, more so when, but what that contract is going to look like and then how he can tinker the roster afterwards based on the cap because the Devils only have 6.1 million. What are your thoughts?
I'll also just add real quick, it's to bring in Dadanov is a very underrated move for Arseny Gritsu because he's coming into a team that
Yep.
like he could probably barely speak any English at all. He's not familiar with the area. Both guys are Russian, and Dadanov could definitely help him get more familiar with the states and stuff like that. more familiar with how like things go in the country and stuff like that, and make him feel more comfortable to have a fellow guy who played in the KHL in the past and also is a Russian guy just like him. So it's good to have someone that basically could take him under his wing, basically, and it can make things much more easier for Gritsuk to come into the Devils and succeed. So that's something that I like to point out that I thought was like, I wonder if Fitzgerald, when making that signing, is if he thought like, if he had any like thought going in his head, like, oh, let's do this for Gritsuk as well, because I'm sure he did a little bit. I don't know though, but Dodonov will be definitely a good player that will help the Devils this upcoming season. And this Luke Hughes extension, it's going to be very interesting. Right now, as it stands, they have $6.1 million in cap space, and I think we both believe that's not enough to get Luke Hughes extended at the moment. Right now, his agent told Fitzgerald that we'll talk about a possible extension after the holiday, meaning after the 4th of July weekend. So possibly we might get an extension starting next week, but the thing is, like, they're gonna have to find a way to clear up some cap space to be able to extend Luke Hughes because I believe he's gonna get anywhere from 7.5 million, maybe upward to $8 million a year. We look at the Brock Faber extension, and you could kind of compare those two guys. Jack Hughes made 8 million a year. Quinn Hughes is making 7.9 million a year. So just a little comparison there. I don't know. I feel like they use Jack Hughes' contract as kind of like I don't know like what the term is, but like I don't think they want to go above 8 million, because I think they value Jack Hughes more than Luke Hughes, but Luke Hughes could very well make over 8 million, and I just wouldn't be surprised by it. But I'm gonna say around $7.5 million a year, and it'll be 8 years. I think most definitely he wants to be a Devil for life, and he wants to play with his brother Jack for the next 8, 10, 12, 15 years. I'm sure so. But they're gonna have to find a way to move some money here, and we can get into that all we want. Whether they move a guy like Palat or Dougie Hamilton or something more smaller, like maybe sending down Curtis McDermott. They're gonna have to make a decision though when it comes to extending Luke Hughes, though.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I think they could get it done with what they have. Like you said, sending down McDermott would clear up, I believe, 1.15 million. Juho Lammikko currently counts against the cap. That's $800,000. So does Seamus Casey for 950 grand, and Nico Dawes for 813 grand. And as we discussed, Nico Dawes is probably going to be a casualty of the Jake Allen signing. So when you add those all up, I think they're pretty comfortably over 8, or yeah, they will be slightly over 8. But you're gonna need depth guys. Like, you're not going into the season having no healthy scratches. Like, you're gonna have some people on the roster. It's gonna be very, very tight. Um, I I feel like he's gonna have to move someone, whether that's a big swing and he takes Andre Palat, or move someone like Dawson Mercer and ends up, I mean, maybe I'm just spitballing. Someone like a Nikolai Ehlers, and then Dawson Mercer goes, but then they won't have a 3 seed. There's no perfect answer here, but just cap wise, obviously Luke Hughes has to get done. And I don't know if moving Palat is something the Devils would be willing to do, but that seems like the most obvious option, just solely based on his contract. Dougie Hamilton as well is someone who maybe the Devils aren't as high on as they used to be, just because he's been injured, and aside from 22-23 has felt a little underwhelming in terms of his performance. So I don't know. It's going to be really tough, but I would expect that the Devils aren't done making moves, because I personally find it very hard to believe that Luke Hughes is coming back and nothing else is happening, because that's just way too tight of a cap situation. Unless they put Jonathan Kovacevic on long-term injured reserve because we know he's not going to start the season. They're like, we'll figure it out later, which I don't think would be a very smart decision. I think you need to tackle the issue now.
And talking about Nikolai Ehlers, Dave Pagnota just tweeted that he's expected to make his decision today, and it's down to Carolina, Washington, and Utah, and possibly a mystery team might be involved in there as well. So, as the current state of the Devils stands, I don't think they could afford Ehlers. I think he's gonna want at least over $7 million a year because he's the top guy in the market. So he's gonna take full advantage of it. So that would suck if he goes to one of those teams like Carolina or Washington, because that's now a problem for the Devils. But maybe by the time the episode's out, you guys will know what team he goes to. So hopefully it's not one of those two teams there. But yeah, for me, like, I think this team needs another top six forward, because my main concern with this team is, like, I feel like their lineup is constructed very well, but like I feel like the last 2 years we just have come back to the same topic, which is injuries. And we can talk about it in a future episode, but like, you cannot 100% guarantee that Jack Hughes is going to stay healthy, Nico Hischier is going to stay healthy, Dougie Hamilton's going to stay healthy. Those guys, like you heavily rely on those guys. Even Timo Meyer, you could throw into the mix there. Um, like, they're very important players, but they're not always able to stay healthy. And Dougie Hamilton, for the last 3 out of 4 seasons, has been injured at least at some point in the season. Jack Hughes has been injured basically every season at some point during the regular season, hasn't been able to play a full 82 game season. And I don't think it's fair to count on those guys, because once those guys get injured, you see the team, like, they're just not the same once they lose one of those top guys. And it's important that you get guys like Connor Brown and Dadonov, because they can make the lineup much more balanced and help provide more offense there. But I still think they need another piece that can really chip in maybe to like a 20-30 goal season, that they can get in that top six role. I don't know how they're gonna do that. I think the most likely option right now is that they get someone via trade, because there's not many great guys really available anymore in the free agent market. Ehlers is expected to be gone. Granlund's gone. Suter, I know you were raving about him, Daniel. He's off the market now. So, basically, most of the top guys, most of the top forwards, I should say, are gone. So, if they are going to get someone, it's going to be through trade most likely. And I will say, I think this team should trade Andre Palat. I just, for what he's making, $6 million cap hit right now against a team, I don't think it's worth it to keep him anymore. And I think they could get a much more better player in exchange for Palat. Not via trade. You might be able to get like a late round pick at best for Palat, because at the end of the day, it's most likely going to be a cap dump on a team. And now they could trade Palat and Hamilton, because now they're eligible to be traded and they have a 10-team trade list. So it makes it much more easier for the Devils to move one of those guys if they need to. But yeah, I don't think Palat has lived up to what they when they signed him. I think you could agree with that, Daniel. But like, Palat is an important player, like, in different aspects, but when it comes to offense, which his team I think needs more of, I don't think he provides enough of that. So I would look to move him. Even Dougie, like, I wouldn't mind trading him, because he's regressing every season, hasn't been able to stay healthy. I feel like his slap shot is just not the same as it once was, and he's never been the best player defensively. So that's a lot of question marks that are going to be coming up the next couple weeks regarding this team. I don't know which direction they're going to go to. But I have a feeling that Palat or Hamilton, one of those two guys, are not going to be a New Jersey Devil in the next month or so. I'm just gonna leave that out as a prediction. So you could debate whether or not you think it's true, but I don't know. I feel like they have to move one of those guys if they want to improve their forward group, which I think is needed right now, especially considering that many guys in that forward group have not been able to stay healthy for the last couple years now.
Yeah, I just want to add two talking points based on what you said. First, you mentioned health. If Jack Hughes isn't healthy this season, or isn't ready for the playoffs at the very least, the Devils aren't doing anything. And look, he could not have avoided that injury in Vegas. That was just a freak accident, no matter what. It was just unavoidable. So I feel bad for him, and it started the whole discussion is, can Jack Hughes stay healthy enough? But with that being said, I think he still can benefit from putting on more muscle, and that will make him more durable. He has more compared to when he got drafted, but he still isn't the strongest player. Now, he's never going to be like a Nico Hischier level of strong on his skates, but if he is just a little more to be a little more durable, I think that will help. Jack Hughes is still just an insanely gifted and smart player, and we know how good of a team the Devils are when he's healthy. So that's the biggest thing. They just need Jack Hughes to be healthy. And we said the same thing last offseason. Then look how that went. The playoffs were basically, series was basically written off from the second Jack Hughes got hurt. So he's just too important of a player to miss, period. And if he gets hurt again, then there could be discussions, but you're hoping that Jack is able to stay healthy, hoping for his sake that he's able to stay healthy and get back on track. Um, and then the second point, I feel like not enough people are talking about, because of everything that's happening, the defensive logjam with Nemeth and Casey. Because when Kovacevic is healthy, unless someone else is injured, neither of Casey or Nemeth will be in the lineup. And I mean, these guys are getting older now. Like, it's not like they're first cracking into the league. Like, Casey will be going to his second NHL season. Nemeth will be going into his third. And granted, they both didn't play regularly in those spans, but I feel like they're gonna have to do something. Like, do they maybe trade and offload an Andre Palat and then use one of Nemitz or Casey to land a quote unquote big fish? Like, the Devils have a lot of options here, and even not saying they should, but Fitzgerald said yesterday that Mikhail Yegorov his name has been floated around at the trade deadline. He's someone that teams definitely want. So they have pieces that have value, and just Simone Nemitz's performance made making the playoffs alone worth it, because his value has just skyrocketed. It's a good problem to have, but I don't know. I think you're in agreement with me. I don't think the Devils are done. I think once Luke's contract gets figured out, we're gonna see some corresponding moves.
I think so too, and I like that you brought that up. I didn't even like think about that before, but I think it's doing both those guys a disservice if they're playing in the AHL come next season, because I think they're NHL ready. I think it's time for them to like, yeah, like they might make some mistakes and it might take a little bit more adjusting to playing a complete NHL game schedule for 82 or possibly 84 games a season in the future. But I think it's time for those guys to play in the NHL with the big boys, and it's not fair towards either of them, towards their development, especially because I feel like it's just holding both of them back at that point. They're just keep on playing with minor leaguers. So I wouldn't mind trading one of those guys. We can have a debate whether or not it should be Casey or Nemeth for another episode, but both those guys hold a lot of value. I think even like a guy like Ethan Edwards holds a lot of value as well. I would think, and you could possibly make a big move here for a top 6 guy if you really wanted to, and maybe include a draft pick if you feel like it has to come to that. So yeah, it's a lot of the Devils have a lot of options on the table, which is a good thing. And yeah, and the main thing is like we'll see like if they trade Dougie Hamilton away, because then that means like that would be an opening for one of those guys, Casey or Nemeth there. But if that doesn't happen, like they have like 6 defensemen basically signed up until 2027. So it's not like one of these guys are gonna soon come off the team, except if Hamilton gets traded, or maybe like Dylan gets traded after next season. So but for the most part, these guys are gonna be the crew, or the core that they have now is gonna be the core that the Devils have for a very long time. So I wouldn't be surprised if one of Casey or Nemeth are moved very soon here for a top 6 guy.
I would not be either. I would think they're leaning more towards Casey, just because I think needs to fill in for Kovacevic, who we don't know exactly when he'll be back, but it definitely won't be in October from what we're hearing. So Nemeth is more of that two-way guy who can like shut down the other teams and provide a touch of offense, where Casey is very raw defensively still. He's strictly offensive. So I think Nemeth is the safer bet. If you want to be a contender, I think he has to be in the lineup, and he can be someone who eventually maybe takes over the role of someone like Dougie Hamilton as a top pair defenseman. So I think if you're a Devils fan overall, you have to be happy with what's gone on so far, but not satisfied. Um, Pointing in the right direction for sure, and Fitzgerald has done a great job so far, but they're not in. If you put this team as constructed against the Florida Panthers, they're not winning. And really, that's what it comes down to, because you're in the Eastern Conference with them. I mean, that's a team you're going to have to eventually go through. And I think it's pretty clear they cannot match up at this point. Maybe if they add another top 6 winger, different story. But that's what it's going to come down to. We could talk all you want. That's what the NHL has come down to now. Can you beat the Florida Panthers? I cannot say that the Devils can right now, and I don't think you can either.
Yeah, no, definitely not. I don't think they could beat the Carolina Hurricanes as it stands right now. A team that they just happen to run into the last two times they've been into the playoffs. So that's another team that you're gonna have to beat because the odds are you're gonna see them in either round one or round two in the playoffs if you were to make it there. So they gotta have to find a way to beat the Hurricanes, the Panthers. The Leafs are still there. I know. I mean they just lost Mitch Marner, which is a big one. The Rangers got better this offseason so far. So that's another team to look out for. The Islanders got a lot better this offseason and they got much more younger. So they're a team to look out for the next year or two. And yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Also, Capitals, like, are they gonna keep it up like they did last season, or are they gonna regress? Like, we really don't know. I don't know the answer. I could see them being like an 80-point team all the way to a 110-point team. So that's a big question mark there, but I think I can agree with you when you say the Devils are gonna be a playoff team, they will. I don't know if they're gonna be like a second place team, third place team, wild card team. I don't know how that's gonna be right now, but I think a top six forward is needed if they want to have any chance of winning that division and having success come playoff time. I think they have their their defensive core and their goaltending pretty like locked in right now. Like it looks pretty good on paper right now, and I think it'll be very good next season. The question mark is, well, the biggest question mark is like, can Jack Hughes stay healthy? Is the forward group deep enough to overcome an injury if he does? So I think that's what it is. And I don't think it's fair for this team to go through another year of like, oh, if Jack Hughes gets injured, like, oh, the season's basically over. Like that shouldn't that shouldn't be how it be. Like you saw Matthew Tkachuk got injured for the Panthers and they were perfectly fine. And they were able to make the playoffs and then went on a crazy cup run for back-to-back years. Like, it shouldn't be that situation where the Devils where it's like, "Oh, Jack Hughes is gone, season's over." Like, it shouldn't be like that, and it's not fair to put that much pressure on Jack Hughes to stay healthy because a lot of like, it's out of his control. Yes, he should put on some more muscle, I think, but um, I don't want this upcoming season to be another thing like Jack Hughes has to stay healthy for this team to be good. Like that's not fair anymore. And we saw like look at the last 3 seasons of the Devils, like that first season where they went on that great run, they made the playoffs, went to the second round. The whole team was basically healthy for the whole entire season. And then then 2 years that came after that, they weren't healthy. So I think it's really just gonna come down to health once again. I think they're a more deeper team and might be able to overcome those injuries, but at the end of the day, it's like they have they have to stay healthy, and that's the biggest question mark that like we can't answer to any of you right now. Like, we don't know how that's gonna play out, and that's an unfortunate thing for the Devils. They're not deep enough, I don't think, right now to overcome injuries.
Yeah, so we'll see. It's gonna be. I hate saying this because this is the third season we're doing now of this podcast, and I'm just gonna say it's gonna be very interesting to see how it all shakes out because for 2 years now it has been a little rough. It hasn't been what Devils fans have wanted, and I'm sure a lot of you listening have grown some frustration with the team over time. But like I said, you have to be happy with what's gone on so far, but cautiously optimistic and not satisfied yet. That's the advice I would give. So we'll see. We'll have all your analysis as things possibly continue to happen. I mean, definitely the Luke extension, and then if anything else follows that, we'll have some more debates and stuff like that. Just October will be here before you know it. Time flies. Feels like the Devils just got eliminated, and here we are already talking about free agent acquisitions. And so, yeah, we'll see how it all shakes out. Any last things, Justin?
Nah, I agree with what you said. It's gonna be a fun ride this offseason to see if anything happens. I think it needs to happen. And yeah, but it all starts with the Luke Hughes extension, and then all the dominoes will fall from there.
I agree. So thank you all for listening. If you're a Devils fan, again, if you see Jake Allen out in the street, make sure to give him a great big hug, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Peace out.